everyone, and welcome to the Racing Mentors Sponsorship Podcast. We're going to be talking about how to research sponsors today, and in particular, looking at how you can research their goals to inform your pitches. So, as always, I'm here with Toby. How are you doing today?
Hey Jess, how you doing? I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really good. It's been quite a whirlwind week for me. It's been quite exciting. It seems like there's lots happening, and the motorsport world's starting to, I don't know, start working again with people going to track days and stuff, and I'm a bit jealous.
Yeah, I'm too a little bit jealous. I've seen a lot of people posting that they've been going to track days and out their race cars and stuff. It's so good to see. So it's great to see our community of drivers and fans starting to sort of build this momentum back into the season actually finally started.
Yeah, so anyone who is going to track days or doing anything with a race car, please tag us, because although I am classed as crew for a number of drivers, I don't think I'm allowed to go to racetracks just yet and hang out because of the rules that are still in place. But so yeah, just tag us in your race car pictures and track day pictures, so I can at least feel a bit involved.
Yeah, we all like to see pictures of race cars and stuff, don't we? So
Absolutely. So let's start by talking about why drivers need to do research for sponsors. I know that a lot of drivers they prefer to just find an email address and then just send like a blanket email to 100 people with no research. And I think anyone who's listening to this will know that that's probably a flawed approach, but they might not know why. I'd love to hear your kind of experience with this, Toby, and what your approach is.
yeah, I mean, I take a very in-depth sort of sponsorship search process really. Firstly, I want to find a sponsor that I know I can help, one that I would like to work with and that kind of goes well with my values. But I think with regards to like the whole process of sponsorship research, it's like you say, it's not just a case of jumping in it on an email and going, hey, can you sponsor me? Can you do this for me? Can I have some money for go racing? You've got to completely flip your mindset to look at how actually you can give value to that sponsor. And the only way you can do that is actually understand them. Don't you agree, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many people go into a sponsorship pitch not knowing anything about the business beyond the really basic stuff, like what they sell and where they're based, are usually the two big ones. But you can actually go into so much more detail than that, and this is useful because if you're looking at a sponsor and you know exactly what they're trying to do with their social media, for example. So when you go into your email pitch, you're going to know exactly what a sponsor is trying to do. So the things that you're offering can help them achieve the same goals. And I think that's where a lot of drivers are falling down. And this is the reason that your pitches aren't getting read, because they're not personal enough. And it's so easy to tell that they're not personal from like the first line of an email. So if you can make every pitch bespoke to the business that you're pitching to, you're going to get a much better response rate for a start. And I think a lot of drivers are so keen just to get out the numbers of pitches for a higher probability, that they forget that if they just spend a bit more time on one, that probability for that one goes through the roof.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just starting a conversation around a particular part of the business, perhaps they've got a special anniversary, maybe they've run in their business for 25 years or 50 years, or they've got a brand new product launch or something. Straight away, you've got kind of like common ground to actually talk to that sponsor and understand them a bit more.
Exactly. So anyone who's listening who is in kind of that early research phase of wanting to pitch to a business, don't just kind of do the bare minimum. It's really important to look at their goals specifically. So look at everything that they're doing to try and market themselves. Look at their advertising, look at their social media, what events they're planning or maybe were planning or are planning after pandemic is all of the lockdown stuff is lifted. Look at all of that activity and work out what they're trying to do. What will the impact of those events and those marketing activities be on the business? Because you're going to want to write a pitch email that speaks to the same things. So if it's quite broadly that they want to get more sales, then you need to talk in your email about how you can get them more sales. So it doesn't actually have to be that complicated, but in doing this, a business will end up looking at your email and go, well, this person's done their research. They can actually help me do what I'm already trying to do. We should chat. So, Toby, when you research, because I know that you do heavy in-depth research like I do, what kind of things are you looking for?
But yeah, so I look for the broader things like you've already suggested. But then I look to go into maybe like news articles. So on Google, you've got lots of tools at your fingertips. So I would research, go on the website, have a look at the business, but then I'd also look at any kind of like press related stuff they've got. So you can be really, really specific about things they're celebrating.
Yeah, and this is good for, the hook of an email as well. I like going into, a pitch and saying something like, "Oh, I see you've just celebrated your 25th anniversary," or whatever it might be. Congratulations, because suddenly they're all fired up about it again. And I think if you know things like that, it's so much easier to open up a conversation. So even if you're not throwing yourself into a pitch right away, maybe you're messaging on Instagram or LinkedIn first, you could just open up the conversation with congratulations on 25 years. What's next for the business, or how do you feel about getting to this huge milestone? Anything like that can open up a conversation, which makes it so much easier to pitch in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And we're in a really interesting time right now as well, with regards to like the companies that maybe are struggling with their marketing at the moment. You can look back and kind of like pre-COVID or pre this pandemic, and they may have been quite busy and noisy on social media and on the kind of like the websites and stuff. And they may have actually gone quite quiet. And that something subtle like that could just be an opportunity for you to go, hey, I've noticed that you've, over the period of time you've been posting lots of information, things have gone a little bit quiet. Is there anything I can help out with? And straight away, you're actually recognizing that perhaps they're struggling, and offering a new way to actually generate more content for them, and offering your help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I take a slightly different approach to most, and I start very high level, and then I dive in a bit deeper. But whenever I teach the live 6 weeks success course, I always get people to give me examples of businesses that they're chasing or would like to chase. And I'll then go in and do some kind of basic research to show people what's going on. And the first thing I always start with is just looking at their website, not reading anything or anything like that, but just to get a feel of what the business is like, especially if they're not like a big brand that I really know. So just looking at things like whether, is it a luxury brand? Are they budget? Are they fun? Are they a bit more corporate? Because all of those things, just in the first instance, will help you work out how you should speak to this business. Because a fun business probably isn't going to respond well to a very corporate email, and vice versa. So I think like high level stuff like that is really important. And then, like you say, kind of delving in deeper to everything that they're doing, scrolling through their social media and looking at each post and thinking, why have they posted this? What is the goal of this specific post? So I think I used JCB as an example in one of the 6 weeks success courses, and they have an agricultural, I think it's agricultural Twitter account where they just post nice pictures of diggers, I guess, and tractors and stuff. And everyone was saying, well, what's the goal of this? And it's actually just a brand exercise to show you what's available, but it shows the high level and it shows how much they care about their products. So it was a really interesting exercise. And there's no links. It's not like they're trying to push someone to buy. But if their audience is all people who would buy these kind of tractors and diggers and whatever they were, then those people are going to see those machines and be like, I know exactly what this is because I have that expertise, and I already have a JCB contact because it's JCB. So it's kind of even stuff like that you can kind of extrapolate those goals from, and it does take practice. And I think because I've been doing it for a long time, and doing sales and trying to work this out for all sorts of brands, it now comes a bit more naturally to me. But I wondered, Toby, if have you had any kind of struggles that you've managed to overcome since starting your sponsorship journey in terms of research? Have you kind of learnt things, in this last, however long it's been, 18 months or so?
Yeah, massively, Jess. I mean, firstly, just obviously going through kind of like your book, and the 6 weeks to success course. I've managed it again, just about.
Well done.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about sponsor research and actually how to research sponsors correctly. but you're a bit of a pro at that, Jess. And even now, when I'm struggling at, what, I always pick your brains in the podium club, Jess. Or what do you think about this sponsor? And you always seem to pick up something that I've perhaps missed. It's helpful to have this kind of like mentoring process to actually, work together and research sponsors in a more unique way. But I think I've got a lot better, particularly over the last sort of 6 months that I've since worked with sponsors directly. I now know a little bit more about what research I need to do to actually make sure any new sponsors on board, I can kind of be more efficient with it. Because I think the sponsor I had last year, it's been a kind of learning process over the year, working with those sponsors and actually understand them more. And I suppose that's like a relationship building process of learning more about them as you kind of work with them. But it definitely has helped my research now, because I can be really more specific with regards to what particular goals are associated with that sponsor, and I'm more confident in my offerings that I can then work around that kind of research.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have do you have like a spreadsheet or anything that you work from where you've got like different kind of research elements?
Yeah, so I have, this is like my top tip really, I suppose. I have like a notes, the Apple Notes pad on my phone and computer that's all linked to the same thing. And I have a list of all different categories that range from really basic stuff like who the company is, contact information, what they're trying to achieve, what products they sell. And then, further down, it gets really more specific with regards to that particular sponsor. But I have one for each sponsor. And I even hold these for my current sponsors. So if there's something new about them, I can put it in there because I can't remember everything. But it really helps me focus my actual research, because I can kind of go down that list, kind of almost check everything off. And that's the way I like to work, because I've got to be organized. And it really helps me then identify how I then can talk to that company, and structure my emails to contact them.
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet, and I kind of do something similar to you. And there is on I can't remember the page number. I think it's 123 of Get Paid to Race. There's like a research kind of, I guess, table that gives you kind of prompts for what you can look at. But I have a wider version of that, and I'm actually going to, in the show notes for this podcast, have a downloadable kind of research spreadsheet that people can use. And it kind of follows my flow of, it's got all the basics like business, where they're based, what they sell, their main product, who you're speaking to, their department. But then also I've included the stuff that really helps me in terms of what their main goal is, what I offer, and how I should kind of position that and pitch it to them. Because I find that when you're going through this process, it's really good to know all of this in-depth information, but sometimes it's just really good to see goal, what I offer, and basically the benefits of that to that business, all in kind of one line. Because then when you come to write your email, you've almost done like the majority of the work. So if you're listening to this and you want to download that template, go to the show notes on blog.racingmentor.com and you'll find them there.
Nice. That's a really nice free tool to make use of, and hopefully, guys, that helps you structure your sponsorship research and be better at it. I mean, for those out there that perhaps are not quite as business minded as Jess is, a mindset thing that I kind of looked at when dealing with sponsorship research, and this kind of comes back from my corporate background and my working background, is I almost treated it like a job interview. I wouldn't rock up to an interview for a job not knowing a single thing about that business or something specific that I can talk about or be interested in. And also, do I actually want to work for that company? And I think, Jess, you'll probably agree with this, is that kind of taking that mindset of treating it as, maybe a job interview. You want to know as much as you can about that company to show that you can actually give value to that company, and also that they're in line with your brand and your vision.
So I really like this job interview analogy, because there's so many aspects of what we know about job interviews that can be related to sponsorship. So that whole thing about asking questions at the end of a job interview, and how I guess if you went into an interview and you didn't ask a question, they'd be quite upset that you didn't want to know anything about their business. And I think that's a really good kind of piece of advice that you can take from that you can apply to, writing pitches or sending those little relationship building messages and emails early on is to ask questions, because not only does it make the potential sponsor feel like you're interested in them, which obviously you are, but it also helps you with fact finding. So, for example, if you've gone onto their social media and realized that they haven't done anything for 6 months and you don't know why, and you haven't been able to work out whether that's because that social platform doesn't work for them, or if it's because they lost a member of staff who used to run that, or if they just don't have the time themselves. So by asking questions and saying, oh, I see you don't use Twitter anymore, it's actually my favorite platform, what made you stop? Your content was really good, or something like that. Asking those kinds of questions wrapped in a nice little compliment can really help open up conversations. And not only do you get chatting with someone who's probably quite important to your career, but you're finding out important stuff about them. Maybe they loved Twitter, but just didn't have the time for it. So if there's, some way that you can help them with that, then it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, exactly that. And with regards to like finding out really specific stuff, Jess, you're really good at finding things. And for those that are listening that have perhaps done their Google research and maybe they've looked on social media and stuff, they may still be struggling to find the finer details of a business. Jess, you've given me some tips in the past to actually, keywords and actual phrases you can sort of Google or websites you can go on to find a bit more about information about that company. Have you got any tips for our viewers today to actually be really, really specific in finding those goals?
Yeah, so there's a few. So the first would be to look at their press coverage, but use Google News. So news.google.com or whatever the suffix is for where you're based. Type in the business name and see what high level news coverage they've had. And why this is different to normal Google is it will just show you like press articles for like Google News syndicated press. So this is big newspapers, etc. Look and see what kind of coverage they're getting on and on what topics, because it's likely that it'll give you an insight into what they're trying to do and what they're trying to push. You should also use LinkedIn. Not enough people like use LinkedIn, and even if you're not actively using it as a social platform, it's a great search tool. So if you've done a bit of research and you found an article where the managing director talks about a new product, for example, and you've got the managing director's name, but you can't find an email address on a website for them, go onto LinkedIn, type in that person's name and see if they come up, and you can connect with them. And then once you've connected with them, you can find their contact details just on their profile page. And also, if you're struggling to find, the MD or the CEO or the founder or marketing directors or whoever it might be for a business, you can also just go onto LinkedIn and type in the business name. And this is a very underused tool, because if the business has a page, often it'll say there are so and so many employees on LinkedIn. You can click that and you'll see everyone that said that they work for that company on LinkedIn. So typically, if it's quite a large business, you'll be able to find the person that you need to speak to. There's obviously then the usual thing of doing your research, so when you do message them or do connect with them, they don't think it's going to be spam, they don't think you're just going to try and sell to them, etc. So I'd say they're my big tips for kind of finding who to speak to. In terms of kind of like deeper research to understand goals, a Google search is your friend, but don't just kind of stick with what you see on those top search results. Go a bit deeper, but then also use other guess keywords, like you said, Toby, in those Google searches. So I often use things like best-selling product with the business name, or I might look at events or awards. Just using these kinds of keywords just to find out a bit more specifically about the business can kind of really help you see what they're trying to push. So, for example, let's use awards. If you see that a business has won an award for innovation, then you probably know that they're going to be very, very kind of tech focused and looking towards the future. So if you can then talk about the innovation of what you're doing, whether that's, the tech in your race car or some other tech that you're using within your business, or a way that you're looking towards the future within motorsport, or whatever your secondary niche is, all things like that can help you create a connection with a potential sponsor. But from all this, you also might realize that they're not right for you. So like if a business is talking about sustainability, and innovation, whereas you're doing, something with a V8, or you're doing some kind of dirty truck racing or something like that. And I know motorsport's getting cleaner, but often these very, very eco-focused businesses aren't interested. So sometimes you kind of have to go, okay, that one's not right. Not going to waste my time pitching to them. And I actually do that quite a lot. There's so many businesses like you, Toby, that I've researched and have never pitched to them, because I know it's not worth my time, and I'd rather focus my time on those 20% of businesses that will bring me 80% of my return.
Yeah, exactly that. And it comes back to kind of the early episode with regards to your branding, is kind of like when you look at these research opportunities and finding these sponsors, you both, your brand needs to align with their brand and vice versa. And it's quite right what you said, Jess. If it's something that doesn't quite sit within your brand, or you can't help them, or it wouldn't work with your audience, that you couldn't then help them, it's that they're not worth your time and their time to actually start a conversation. So the research is so important. And just coming back to LinkedIn, with regards to like using that tool, because it is fantastic. I'm on LinkedIn daily. Make sure that you don't just send spam emails. Start conversations. Those people are on there because they genuinely want to grow their business or develop on their career, etc. So they're on there for a reason. But be really, really sort of like careful of how you connect with those people, to make sure that you're having good conversations, not just like a spam email of, oh, hey, sponsor me. And I think that sort of takes me on to a little bit about what you talk about all the time, Jess, is don't talk about yourself. Focus on the business research, focus on the sponsor, and then understand genuine how you can benefit that company.
Yeah, and I think I've upset a few people in the past by saying, stop talking about yourself. And, every time that I'm asked to review a pitch or a proposal document, I just have to send that one blog post that's called Stop Talking About Yourself, which, basically talks about this. Because I think if you don't understand a business and you just go in talking about yourself, they're just going to scroll past it and think that you've sent it to hundreds of other people, even if you haven't. Whereas if you go in talking about them first, when you do get to a point where you speak about yourself, it's going to be so much more relevant. Because if you go to a potential sponsor and you say, hey, I'm a racing driver, I offer hospitality, plus, what you race and where you race it and all that kind of stuff, they're not really going to be interested. But if you have a conversation with them about the networking events that they do, and the box at the football that they have, and you have a bit of a conversation about what that's like and that kind of thing, suddenly when you then talk about hospitality and motorsport, it's so much more relevant, and they'll already be engaged in that conversation and they won't just scroll past it.
Definitely.
So I want to look at the different kind of goals that people might come across when researching sponsors. I don't know if there are any you've come across, Toby, that are maybe outside of the norm or quite interesting, or those kind of goals that always crop up.
I mean, one particular goal, and this relates to one of my new sponsors, was that they have a marketing company that they broadly advertise to a whole host of businesses and a big reach of different types of companies. But their really specific goal is their absolute love and passion for motorsport. And I found this out through looking through their social channels and what they post about. So straight away, I knew that I had a common ground with them. And obviously that's really great that they were in that position, that they love motorsport, because it straight away opens up the conversation.
Mm.
And that was quite an obvious and easy one for me to see, that they love motorsport. So I think the sponsors that I'm currently looking at to just talk to in the next few weeks, I have found some really, really specific goals with them, Jess, but I can't share them right now because it would give
No.
away it would kind of give away what I'm up to. But I love seeing that. I love seeing what specifically they're about. So
Mm.
yeah.
So the ones that I often come across are businesses that want to make more sales, and just like you say, specifically in a certain industry. And they, depending on what you're doing as a driver, that industry doesn't necessarily have to be motorsport. If
Yeah.
you're a driver with like a, you know, a construction background, if you know a business that wants to get into construction or wants to do more in construction, then you just use that side of your persona and use motorsport to kind of bring those two sides together. So yeah, sales is a big one, but also brand awareness. And I think that's quite a woolly term, because brand awareness often leads to sales, but who do they want to make aware of their brand?
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
specifically are they trying to target? Because is it just to give more knowledge to existing customers? Is it to introduce new customers to a product? So I know a lot of drivers are kind of focused on brand awareness and things, because obviously a sticker on a car is brand awareness, but you need to kind of think about why. Why does a potential sponsor want brand awareness, and why are they trying to do that? Another one is to businesses want to be known for something, so they want to be able to show their expertise, and often motorsport is a really great way to do this. So let's say you've got a drinks brand. If they are currently known for just being a tasty drink, but they want to be known for the health properties of that drink, and you can see that they're posting maybe fitness stuff, or, you know, they're talking in more depth about natural ingredients, then you can say, look, I'll help you do this, because we can go and, you know, have a workout video done at a racetrack or something like that. You can find out so much about these businesses just from, you know, how they're talking to their audience. So they're just like a few of the kind of goals that you might come across, and how you might, you know, tailor this to what you're offering as a racing driver.
Yeah, I think that brings me to like when I did my 6 weeks course for you, Jess, that you set me a quite a specific goal, and at the start I wasn't quite sure how that would actually work for me, but it was based around the railway background and actually, you know, looking at what sponsors I can start researching. So understanding my niche, which was a train driver and on the railway. So look at railway companies. And you mentioned to me about getting a few magazines, which were railway magazines, so that the niches align. So the businesses that are in those magazines and my niche of a railway train driver aligned.
Yeah.
And you set me this goal to actually go through and look at who's advertising or writing stories in these magazines, and you can actually identify those companies specifically that align with your niches. So for those out there that are struggling to think, oh, where do I actually look for a sponsor, or who can I go to, or, you know, where can I find a company that perhaps I can help, because you understand your niche and what your background is, like you said, Jess, maybe in construction, you can then get some articles, some magazines, and you can actually go through page by page and actually identify individual sponsors in there. So that task was set to me, when was that, Jess? Probably February, March last year.
Yeah.
And I then went through various different companies and researched with them, and I'm actually talking to some of these companies now. So it has taken quite a long time to actually get in touch with some of these businesses. Um, but that's a really good tip, and I'm so thankful, Jess, that you gave it to me, because it opened my horizon of where to actually start looking for sponsorship. And a lot of people just go on the internet, but actually in printed press, there's so much in there that you can read. But it also helps me learn with regards to what do those companies spend on, and is it worth their while. So you mentioned to me, Jess, about understanding how much a particular advert costs in a magazine or newspaper, and you can find that out from the publisher, and you can be a bit crafty there and look at the cost of stuff, but you can then almost work out how much that company is potentially spent on advertisement, and then you can look at the budget side of that sponsor if they've got the budget available. And there's so much more you can find there. So have you got a little bit you want to talk about in that respect, Jess?
Yeah, so this is actually one of my favorite ways to research for like potential sponsors. I grab a load of trade magazines or like industry specific magazines. So, you know, if you're into fishing as well as motorsport, pick up one of the fishing mags. If you've got a caravan mags, all of that kind of stuff. But there's also, you know, different trade magazines for different industries as well. So there's like accountancy magazines, marketing magazines, all sorts. Might not find them on the shelves of your local kind of news agents, but you can typically find them online by searching, you know, your industry trade magazine or trade press. And most of these mags will have like an online version. So even if you can't, you know, pick up the latest edition of, you know, I don't know, Railway Daily. I don't, I don't know any railway industry magazines.
Almost,
Um,
yes.
yeah, if you can't pick up a mag like that because you're not in that sector of the industry, just go online, and then yeah, just as Toby says, flick through, look at who is being mentioned editorially, so in the articles, because these people will probably be actively doing press. So if press is something that you think that you can offer to a business that will speak to their goals, look at who is already trying to do this, because you know that you can go to them and say, I see you're getting press coverage in trade magazines, how about wider press coverage, because I've been featured in the Independent or something like that. And then also look at the adverts. So here, this is my top tip for this week, is when you see a business advertising in a magazine, you can find out how much they've paid roughly. So if you look for the magazine's name and then rate card, you'll often be able to download the pricing for that magazine based on full page, half page, quarter page, etc. Not all magazines and publishers will have these freely available, so you might need to call and ask, and they might not give it to you unless you're an advertiser. So if you can find one of these rate cards, you can see that a business might have paid £1,000 for that one advert, but you can also look at the demographics of the magazine. So you'll know for that £1,000 they've reached 15,000 people who are ABC1, which is like the high affluent category of people. 80% of them are male. You can find out all of those statistics, and then from there you can look at that and say, well, actually that matches my audience. So when you go to that business, you know that they're targeting the audience that you already have. So absolutely use magazines in this way, and do your research into those magazines as well, because if you can find one that matches your audience, the people advertising in there are going to be like prime subjects for you to then go and speak to and hopefully pitch to as well.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating. I mean, when you gave me that tip and I started using that, I couldn't believe how much advertisement in magazines can cost for a company.
Yeah.
It was quite surprising. But it kind of a conversation I had with a sponsor several months ago now. They were trying to find ways of engaging more directly with their audience, and I'm one that I actually skip past most adverts. I fast forward TV adverts. I don't really read adverts in magazines because they're not engaging. And I think it kind of like, if you can then look at, say for example, in my situation, they go into the railway magazines and they're advertising specific adverts in there, and I'm just skipping past them. Imagine if you can go then to that magazine and say, look, can I create a story or a regular post in this magazine for this company? And then you can offer them as a benefit. And then their readers that they're trying to focus their attention to have then actually you've got an actual specific story for that sponsor that's relevant to their audience versus just an advert they're probably just going to skip past. And I know in
Exactly.
the future episodes we're going to go through obviously the press coverage side of it, but straight away you can identify that business wants to advertise to the readers of that magazine. But if you can then create stories and show them value in that respect for getting articles in that magazine that won't cost them money directly to the magazine, but also you're then creating engaging content for the sponsor. And I know we're delving into this future episode, Jess, but you understand their goals straight away. You actually understand that who they're trying to reach, and you're already looking at ways of, okay, I know how I can help that company.
Yeah, and there's so much more value in a piece of editorial coverage than there is in advertising in the same magazine, because like you say, most people skip past the ads, and we're also, with the internet, we're also blinded by advertising that we don't notice it now. And actually it probably doesn't work for the majority of businesses, but they're still spending money on it. So if
Yeah,
you can go
amazingly.
to a business and say, I bet this isn't working as well for you as you'd like, this is a better way to spend your money for these reasons, then you've got a good business case for them to work with you.
Yeah, and I get bored of adverts. I'm done of adverts. I think it's very old school. We're in this new age now, I think, where particularly some of the bigger brands, they're involved with stories and they get behind stories. And I know as a consumer of stories myself and enjoying social media and stuff, is I really like seeing brands that are involved in people and stories and something that I can engage with. As a racing driver, you've got so much to offer in that respect. So, like you said, Jess, you can basically be quite confident and say, look, I can bet you your advertisement campaign hasn't worked, and I think I can offer you something, a lot more value to you, for possibly less cost a lot of the time. I mean, I know TV advertisings can run into the millions of pounds, and as a racing driver, you can offer something of way more value for a fraction of the price.
Yeah.
And I think once you grow that confidence and understand exactly how that works and understand that sponsor and their goals, you're in a perfect situation to offer genuine value and a really good conversation with that company.
And just to give everyone some context, a business advertising in a daily newspaper, one of the big national newspapers, an advert could cost anything from 5,000 to 20,000, depending how big it is, where it is, etc.
It's massive, isn't it?
And although that one issue, that one, edition of the magazine might reach, 1.1 million people. That's very specific, isn't it? That's clearly that's an actual stat of one of the national newspapers. Although it might reach that many people, if it's gone online and in the actual print edition, that's a huge amount of people, but that's not out of the realms of what even an average racing driver could reach. I've worked with racing drivers who are easily reaching like 10 million people a year,
Nice
which
number.
is huge numbers just from some decent press coverage, social media, and like one or two TV spots. So it's quite easy to reach the kind of levels of engagement and impressions that a business might reach from like one issue of a newspaper for like a fraction of the cost. So if you are going like to big press, look at the big newspapers as well, because that's where the money is. And also, like you said, Toby, look at TV ads as well. I think TV ads are probably a bit more effective, or I know people kind of fast forward through them in this day and age, but maybe look at YouTube ads, that kind of thing. Who's posting video ads on social media, because they all cost money, and there might be more effective ways of doing things by using a brand ambassador, or even creating more engaging video content using a race car.
Yeah, definitely. And just a quick side story with regards to how this actually does work for a sponsor, and this is a live case from me. So I put a story together with the Times. This was back in February, and that post went out to, I think it was about 4 million daily copies a day. So it's a huge reach I got for my sponsors. And I know a lot of the readers of the Times are specific to one of my sponsors, and they got some great coverage there. But if that company would have just put an advertisement in that particular paper, yes, they may have got some interaction and some good brand awareness. But what I did with that company is allowed a story to go out. But off the back of it, I've now potentially looking at a TV documentary of Channel 4, and that was read and picked up off the back of this story. So if that company would have just put an advertisement in that paper, that's where it had finished. It had just been an advertisement. But because that sponsor has gone with me and worked with me, and then we've put a story together in that press, we then now are looking at potentially some more TV coverage off the back of it. So just that one article, if you just compare the advertisement to the article, yes, you're reaching the same audience, but now I've leveraged that, and I'm now looking potentially at a TV documentary. So take that as a bit of a case study that this does genuinely work, and I think you'll agree with that, Jess.
Absolutely. And obviously any press coverage that you're getting for your sponsors is good for you as well. So I don't want to give too much away from what might be a future episode, but yeah, press coverage is a mighty yet underused tool to the racing driver.
Definitely.
So shall we talk about our driver of the week?
Yeah, this one's a properly cool story. Introduced to me from you, Jess. It was only a recent sort of discovery for me, but what a story. I want to leave it to you to introduce him, because I think you know a bit more about him, and he's from your neck of the woods, I understand.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Keenan Tully. He is a racing driver who first off, he lost a ton of weight, which is an achievement in itself. But I've really noticed that in the last maybe couple of months, so maybe lockdown time, he's really been working hard and putting himself out there. He does this great weekly newsletter that's kind of all about what he's up to and, you know, how he's pushing himself forward, which is kind of how I know, you know, in detail what he's doing. But his story is just so interesting. And maybe I'm a bit biased because he's a Norfolk lad like me, and, you know, his family knows my family, even though I've never met him, which is weird. Norfolk's a small place. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of pick him out of all of the great kind of suggestions that we had, just because he is really, really stepping up his game and working hard. And you can see that in his social media because he's just pushing himself. And I think that the consistency that he has is something that other drivers should aspire to. So that's kind of why he's my pick for this week.
Yeah, and just obviously looking through what he's been up to in the last few months, like you said, Jess, he's so dedicated. Like, he's got true entrepreneurial flair because he runs a business and he understands that his business now helps him with his racing. But he's so determined to make it as a racing driver that he's actually moving to North Carolina next year to follow in a NASCAR series, which I think is incredible, right? He's so hungry for his goals that he's prepared to up sticks from here, go to North Carolina and follow his dreams. And like, I've got a lot of respect for that because that's massive.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like here at Racing Mentor, we are super into determination, hard work, goal
Definitely.
setting. So Keenan's an obvious choice for this week.
Yeah, definitely. So congratulations, Keenan. He's really inspiring, and yeah, congratulations and welcome to the winners podium club. Is that what I want to call it now?
Yeah, why not? I like it. Yeah, let's have a winners club.
Winners club, right?
Yeah.
That'd be quite cool.
I did wonder, you know, I've forgotten his name, Theo Paphitis, who used to be on Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
He does that, like, that Sunday business club winner thing. And, like, at the end of, like, the year, everyone gets to go to a big party. I think we should do the same with our drivers of the week.
Yes, I'm down for that. That'd be really good. It's got to be at a racetrack though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we're allowed to go to racetracks, all I'm going to be doing is being at racetracks.
Yeah, definitely. Just missed it so much, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So those of you who are looking for that freebie download of the template for researching your sponsors, you can find it at blog.racingmentor.com/podcast, along with all of the show notes. It'll give you all the links to things that we've mentioned and that we've talked about. So for now, thank you so much for listening, and we will be with you again next week, as always, when this podcast goes out on Tuesdays.
Yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, guys.